My name is Elizabeth Fuentes, and we're going to be rhetorically analyzing the chapter from American Like Me about Ravi v. Patel. We're going to start with a bit of knowledge about the author. We have Ravi v. Patel is known as an American actor, writer, and director. He has appeared in his signature piece, Meet the Patels, which he directed with his sister. Ravi Patel also briefly appeared in the movie Transformers 1. Recently, he has been working on a show called Ravi Patel's Pursuit of Happiness, in which he wrote and also stars in. The main argument of the text is that family is important. Ravi Patel uses personal anecdotes and a pathos appeal to give his argument life. As you can see from the excerpt from the text, these are ways that he does employ these strategies in order to convey his argument. Moving on, we have the past. First thing we have is purpose. Ravi Patel states all the reasons he dislikes being with his family, but realizes through the recounting of his tales that they mean the world to him. The audience for this text is people that have been having trouble with their family. The speaker, Ravi Patel, has recounted his family's adventures and feels that he can encourage others to revisit their relationships with their families. The situation being Ravi Patel tells the story of his family vacation and what it means to be a Patel, to encourage readers to take pride in their own families. Now we're going to begin analyzing the text. Here we have the first paragraph. Patel tries to employ humor so he can describe his father. This hooks the reader to the start of the text. Appeals and devices used are quotes from the experience and humorous diction inside parentheses to make the tone light and humorous. Now we have paragraphs 2 through 4. Some of the strategies employed are a humorous tone and personal anecdotes of the times he has had with his wife. Patel goes in depth about his recent problems which pushed him away from his family, which builds the main point for the argument being that family is important. The humor in parentheses and use of diction to create the humorous tone help try to build this argument, as in times when he says as if somehow that was helping, pointing to sarcasm, which hooks the reader to kind of feel what he's feeling in the moment or to kind of relate more so they can actually understand the argument from their own point of view. In paragraphs 5 through 8, Patel uses an anecdote from his father to teach the readers the origin of his family. The effect is this gives the audience background on Patel's father and why he acts the way he does in the cruise story. Appeals and devices used are the father's anecdotes, humorous diction, and builds his father's ethos as someone who went through so much and pathos for people who could relate. Anyone in the situation of a parent who immigrated over to the certain place that they are in now and have a legacy to their family or just some crazy stories that they want to relate to. In paragraphs 9 through 11, Patel continues to recount anecdotes from his father's childhood. This continues to build his father's ethos as someone who immigrated and connects to the reader's pathos as if they could relate to the story that his father went through. Appeals and devices used are anecdotes and humorous diction throughout the text in parentheses, such as, though today the roads are paved and the drive takes less than half an hour, in a way to ridicule how his father talks about how he walked several miles without shoes at times. In paragraphs 12 through 15, Patel continues to recount the anecdote of his father's journey to America. The effect this has on the reader is that it continues to establish his father's ethos as a man that went through a lot to make something in America. The appeals are anecdotes and humorous diction, which can be seen in the passage on the left where he says, Dad became a civil engineer, or is it civic? As a way to kind of connect with the reader at the moment, even though he's telling his father's story. And he also jokes about his dad's nose a lot that he also gained from his father, saying that it is big, yet ironically he has a bad sense of smell, which is counted towards the humorous diction in a way to connect with the reader. In paragraphs 16 through 18, Patel begins to shift into his own life and telling his own personal anecdotes. This begins to establish a pathos appeal for the whole Patel family and the audience to relate to. The anecdotes used are personal anecdotes from Patel and humorous diction that he adds to his life to make the tone more lighthearted. As in, every weekend, some innocent Caucasian neighbors would be walking their dogs and come upon a scene of 24 cars and 5 dozen Indians dressed up carrying trays of strong-smelling food that wafted up the streets, mingling with all the loud Indian kids playing outside. This happened every weekend, all weekend long. This way, he's kind of relating to what his family would do if anyone could relate to that instance as well, and exaggerating on it by saying all weekend long and every weekend. He might sound like he's making fun of it, but at the moment, he's really thinking about how much he cared about his family and he cared about those times that he spent on those weekends with them. Now in paragraphs 19 through 21, Patel goes in depth with his personal anecdotes, where he's starting to really relate to the reader, or try to relate in a sense of how his life went and how he's different from his family. It begins to show really how different he is and why he thinks that he's so different from his family in the first place and why he dislikes them in that manner. So he uses compare and contrast with anecdotes and humorous diction mixed in so he can fully give the reader his life experience. In ways where he said, I wondered what it would be like to have what kind of freedom and sense of individuality and to spend your parents' cash as if it were monopoly money. He's combining his own feelings with humor to be able to make a lighthearted tone in which he can express himself, since he is an actor who likes to do that. He also uses things as, and it was because in part we were more Patel than your average Patel. My family does not like bosses. He is saying that he is like his family, even though previously he had counter-argued that he was not. It shows that even though he measures himself up to his family's standards, he himself knows that he is different from them, and he continues to live that way. Here in paragraphs 22 to 25, Patel begins to tell the personal story of how he and his sister created Meet the Patels, his signature show. It establishes Patel's ethos in screenwriting and acting. He uses humorous diction and personal stories to make the recounting of his tale more lighthearted, and still expressing how he is different from his parents, or ways that his parents might annoy him in a sense. So, they say things like, fast forward to 2008, Geeta and I are now in our 30s, still poor, still unmarried, and our parents were in code red. You guys need to get married now mode. This shows that his family held him to some standards and wanted him to succeed, but he did not want, which led to a sort of disagreement in his family, which why he to this day is telling this tale, because he did not agree with them in certain ways and he wanted to be his own person. In paragraphs 25 through 30, Patel tells the story of how the premiere for Meet the Patels went. This shows how his family came together for him and his sister, even though they have had past disagreements on how they should live their lives. It includes humorous diction and quotes, such as, Ravi, guess how much I got this room for? You won't believe it, my dad said. I'll believe it. $30. Downtown Toronto, $30. I believe it. This shows how Ravi has viewed his father and how his father is to him, and it includes some kind of humor to keep the reader in tune with the story and to continue it along so they can create some sort of pathos appeal so the reader can ultimately relate to the story Ravi is trying to tell. In paragraphs 31 through 33, Patel comes back to the present when he is about to meet his family again aboard the cruise. This completes the setting up of the pathos between Patel and the reader, as a way to say, this was my unique family story. Your story will also be unique to your family. And in a way, everyone can bond over that because family is important. He uses humorous diction and quotes to complete the setting of the argument, as a way to say, great, a gala cruise. I'm sure it's going to be a hot event. Dad continued, it's going to be a hot event. He's predicting what his father says because he already knows his father's humor. In some way, it is engraved in him, and he will always enjoy that part of his father, even though he may say otherwise. Overall, Ravi Patel used humor and personal anecdotes to retell the story of his parents and his own. He enjoyed using small jokes to lighten the mood so it didn't seem like he was completely downplaying his family and their origin story. Ravi Patel showed people that even though people's families might be very different and expect the same of their children, they could always find a middle ground to get along, because family is everything.